Hey guys, welcome to the fourth edition of Byte Sized Chats with Wrappli. Today I'm very excited to have with us Alan. Alan is a venture capitalist. He's an investor in Wrappli. He's my personal mentor and a friend. And we're really excited to have him. And we're going to talk to Alan about a few things. And just try and get as much value as possible in a short session. So let's get right into it. Thanks for being here, Al.
No, excited.
So Al, first question: what keeps you going, every day?
For me, first, the two things, I guess. One is at a technology level, I'm a geek and I love playing with toys and thinking about technologies in the future and how they impact things.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I really like is working with smart, energetic, sort of passionate people. And so everything I do these days kind of has one or both of those threads in it.
Wow. How did you come about that conclusion? Is it just your experience, or?
Yeah, I think it does take a while to figure out what you really like, and then it's sometimes even harder to figure out if you're good at it.
Yeah.
And ideally, if you really like something, then you get good at it because it's not hard work.
Right.
But yeah, I suppose over the last 8 or 9 or 10 years, it's been pretty clear where I want the rest of my sort of working life to go.
Right. Obviously, you've had such a long career, and
that's because I'm old.
What are some of the highlights that some of the big
Well,
wins,
I guess. Well, I don't know about big wins, but the interesting thing, having started my career in about the early 80s, about 84, 85, is that, the old line today that, people that are starting their careers are probably going to have at least 6 careers within their working life.
Wow.
Is really true, and it's kind of been the case for me. So,
Right.
Having started as an engineer and then training in business, and my first highlight was working with a fabulous consulting firm,
Right.
McKinsey's,
Yep.
doing really interesting strategy work for large companies, which
Right.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate enough to start a venture capital company with a colleague, and we made some really exciting investments over about a 20-year period.
Right.
And I guess the highlight, there's a couple of deals which I could highlight, but more importantly, spending time in Silicon Valley. I spent about 3 years in Silicon Valley.
Wow.
In around the dot-com bust and 9/11. That was kind of interesting.
Wow.
And then more recently, I did an energy startup company, which was running the business myself, and finally getting involved with Wrappli and
Right.
starting up some other companies in that area.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great fun.
I guess you've had your hands in so many baskets, so many buckets. What are a couple of major learnings through that process that?
Yeah, it's a little bit cheesy, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? But I think there's 2 or 3 things. One is you really have to do what you enjoy. Don't get told you have to do something.
Yeah.
Because it may make you rich, or it may make you comfortable at work. Do stuff that stimulates you and makes you passionate.
Right.
And then it just doesn't feel like work. I don't feel like I've worked for 30 years, which is great.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is people don't believe it, but so much of your working life as well as your personal life is around relationships.
Right.
So whether you're an engineer, solving a problem within a team, or you're a salesperson trying to win a $1 million deal, it's all around relationships. So you've got to really think about the relationships you create.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah, but I think it is really true. I mean, and obviously it goes to your personal life as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think at all, although I've got a sort of transactional background in investing, I don't think transactionally. I really think about the long term and the relationships you build.
Right. I guess you've played so many different roles. So for example, when did you decide to step up from role A to B, and what was your decision making process then?
I can't remember that far back. I guess I knew I always wanted to become an engineer because I always liked technology, and so that was a no-brainer. But really moving out of pure engineering, I guess I realised that I wasn't a great engineer. I just enjoyed it. And then I saw so many opportunities broadly in technology that the first step was sort of almost opening my eyes up as to what opportunities existed for me. And again, this is going back 30 plus years. So today, the opportunities are even broader. I mean, you've got a lot of mobility to travel. There's a much more diverse range of technologies. The ability to get into the technology sector, the cost has come down dramatically. I mean, you can develop an app on that for $20,000. Whereas in the old days, you had to put $1 million into building a decent enough system to be able to sell it. And spend 5 times as much selling it. So it's a lot more accessible. And I guess those things really influence your ability to move and be nimble.
Yeah. I guess I want to get a little more, drilled down into your decision-making framework. So, because that's one thing that I value a lot. How do you make decisions?
Oh,
it's a tricky one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
How do you make decisions? I think I am by nature an optimist.
Right.
So, if you think about processes, sometimes they tend to be deconstructive, where you start with something, you take away all the bits that could go wrong or that you're worried about failing.
Yeah.
And then you're not left with very much. And so it's easy to walk away and say, I don't think that idea is going to work, or I don't think that person's good enough, or that's not a path I should go down because it's got too many risks or immediate costs.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I'm a bit more positive, and I tend to think about possibilities if you actually are able to navigate through the hurdles.
Yeah.
So the hurdles, I think, and again, it sounds kind of cliched, but the hurdles to me are opportunities to solve problems.
Right.
And if you can solve a problem and you're keen to give it a shot, there's probably a bunch of other people that are not prepared to solve that problem.
Right.
And that gives you a bit of an advantage, I think.
Yep. So it's again changing a mindset from a problem mindset to a solution mindset.
It really is around, don't try to rip things apart. I mean, you've got to be aware of the flaws in what you're getting into, otherwise, you'll be the guy that, signs up to the next pyramid scheme or whatever.
Yeah.
So don't be naive, but at the same time, you've got to open yourself up and say, okay, well, there is a there. It's just a question of how do I overcome these challenges or these hurdles.
Right. How do you balance, like you say, you enjoy working a lot. How do you balance, your family life and your personal life with that?
And I've got a different approach to most of the people I know, because my personal life and my business life really blend in very, very closely. So I don't discriminate between friends I have at work and friends I have outside at work, and my family is always brought into kind of the stuff that I do. And I'm fortunate because the stuff I do is really interesting. Yeah. So it makes it easy to get my family engaged in it. And I think the biggest challenge is actually trying to create enough time. So that you don't, going back to relationships, you don't cut any relationship short. And it just takes a little bit of discipline to make sure that you haven't done that, but sometimes you make mistakes. And I guess the other thing is just really being open about it and saying, if I'm not doing the right thing, let me know.
Absolutely.
And communication is really important with your family. But I've been fortunate. I mean, up until a few years ago, I don't think I ever missed one of my kids' birthdays.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I spent a lot of time with my kids when they were young. So.
That's just great. What are some of the toughest decisions that you've made so far? So,
it's always difficult telling someone that they're not suited for the role that they're in.
Right.
And, when you're in a position where you're either running a business or on a board, someone has to make those decisions. Because at some stage it could be for the health of the whole business. So it's always difficult, telling someone that they're not going to stay.
Yes.
And, I've had all sorts of episodes doing that with the CEO pounding on the table saying, you're not going to get rid of me, to people taking it very personally. So I think that's always challenging. I don't find financial decisions that tough, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I have a view that money is just the tool; it's not the objective. And so I know that I'm going to lose money on deals, and hopefully I'll make money on other deals. So I don't find that too challenging.
Right.
It really is the
again, it comes down to the relationship.
Yeah, and it's not to say like I can have a great relationship with someone, but still be very honest with them.
Right.
And hopefully they'll respect the fact that I'm being honest and not doing it because I have a personal sort of issue.
Right. I guess a lot of our viewers are pretty young, 24, 25,
Yep.
my age, Raj's age. If they want to start a business, what advice would you give them?
First of all, look, I really believe in sort of creating options for yourself. So, it's a bit of a dichotomy because on the one hand, an investor wants you 100% committed to the venture they're in, and you've got to make that commitment. But on the other side, you need to figure out, what happens in the probably better than even chance that you don't succeed.
Right.
And so you don't want to put your whole life, at stake. So one is most of the people I do work with that are entrepreneurs have got degrees of some form, which makes them a lot more employable than people that don't. And frankly, the experience that you gain in starting a business makes you employable anyway. So one bit of advice in starting up a company is just think about the scenarios, like what are the options, where would you go, how would you play back the year or a year and a half or 2 years that you spent trying to build the company up. I think the other thing is there's nothing wrong with copying a good idea, but it's pretty hard to get massive support for just copying a good idea. So just because the latest trend might be in a particular area doesn't mean that you need to go down that path. And by the time you've probably cottoned on it's probably too late anyway. So it's trying to come up with an original idea or original approach or philosophy, and that's really difficult. I mean, people can sit there for years trying to come up with their first original idea. And I think that if you're the sort of person that's creative enough and you can do that, that's a big asset. But then the contrast to that is, if you find a problem that's not being solved well, may not be an original problem or even an original solution, but you can execute better. You have better people around you, better piece of technology, better access to the market. So I guess, again, it's probably about the individual. It's about the business and the idea. And it's about what your strength is. Is it execution? Is it building the technology? Kind of a vague answer, I guess.
Again, we briefly talked about Silicon Valley. How do you find that to be different to Australia?
Well, my experience there is a bit dated now.
Okay.
Because I got back 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Having said, and Australia has progressed a long way, and there's always been this thing, you want Australia to look like Silicon Valley. It's never going to look like Silicon Valley. It's not going to look like Israel either. I mean, Silicon Valley was very unique because it spawned some really big, successful tech companies which just kept generating both money, to invest in further deals, as well as really smart people with the opportunity to go out and start their own businesses because they made money out of their options. And it has a fantastic university at Stanford right on its sort of doorstep. So we don't have that. I mean, we've got some good universities, we generate good engineers, we generate good business people. We don't have a massive amount of capital, although I must say to start up a company today, the angel sort of high net worth investor networks are a lot better. So, there is still a massive contrast between starting a company in Silicon Valley where you walk down one road and there's probably 20 times as much capital as there is available in the whole of Australia. So I don't think we should try to emulate Silicon Valley. I think we should create our own identity. And there are still lots of problems to solve. They don't have to be, unicorns. They can be solid businesses where you get a great outcome and you make some serious money by the time you're 30 and have another go at doing it again.
That's amazing. I mean, definitely, myself being in a part of the startup. The things things that go on, behind the scenes and things like that. And
great
the learnings-
experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
I mean, I wouldn't forego a university education for it. But heck, you learn a hell of a lot more in a startup
Yeah.
day to day than
Yeah.
you do in most university courses.
Right. Yep, I think I agree with you there. Yeah. I mean, on that note, my final question to you is, what are the 2 or 3 things that you do daily or on a consistent basis to keep your sort of self-aligned to your goals, I guess?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I do think you need a bit of time for yourself.
Yeah.
So I do try to spend a little bit of time
Yeah.
on my own, just
Yep.
planning, whether it's in the car or whatever.
Yep.
I don't actually have a regime. I'm a lousy exerciser and I don't meditate yet, although I might think about it someday. I mean, one thing that I do find with entrepreneurs in particular, and it sounds, again, pretty trivial, but, a good test of whether you're cut out for this is, do you sleep well at night?
Yeah.
And, if you don't get it doesn't have to be 8 hours. I mean, most people don't necessarily sleep 8 hours. But if you don't get a good night's sleep, you've got to question what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're either stressed or, you will be not as productive as you want to be. So I think that's pretty important.
Yep. Wow. I guess that's it
That's
for
it.
today.
Well, thanks for talking
thank you,
with
Alan.
me.
Thanks for being on the show, and hopefully we'll grow it more.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how we go, and also, always happy to talk to entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs.
I think the value that you give to us is going to be massive. So I hope we can give it do a fair justice to it, and we'll try and spread to as many channels as possible.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks a lot.
See ya.